So this is week 3, starting with the first garden bed that has that mixture of reused soil with some of the new stuff. We've got a tomato coming in here that got pretty big over the past 2 days. Some of those bottom ones are missing, so that was the very first tomato plant I showed in the last video. And yeah, you can see some of them are missing, but luckily we're getting a few growths in here. So despite the problems with the soil, it's still not too bad. This plant has a ways to go yet. And then we've got some tomatilla tomatoes that are starting to come up here. So these plants are looking pretty good. That one maybe not, but they're surviving. And so you can really see the difference. We look over here at the other tomatoes. These tomatoes plants are in the new soil and they're much healthier. Haven't quite started producing the tomato yet, but you can just see the healthiness of the plant, so that kind of goes to show the main difference in the soil. All those tomatoes came from the same group. But yeah, so what we've been doing every day is tilling up the soil before we water, especially in this very first garden bed. This one, because the soil is mixed with the old stuff, really needs to make sure that you till it up before you water, so that way the water can reach down inside. We've also got rid of most of the weeds here in the front, so this whole garden bed was lined with weeds that were taking some of the water. I went ahead and ripped those out. Lots of spiders in there, of course. But yeah, so week 3, and then we've got some of the newer tomato plants that just came in last week. They're starting to grow up. Some of the flowers that we planted have died, probably because it's just so dang hot. So we'll probably put some new flowers in. 2 out of 3 cucumber plants survived. The lettuce is having some trouble. Looks like this one is actually starting to come through a little bit. So we're hopeful for these, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and plant some potatoes in there, just because the lettuce is not that promising. But yeah, here you can see some of the products we're using. This raised bed garden mix, professionally formulated for organic gardens, which is what I'm trying to do. Raised bed garden mix from a brand called Eco. Colorado made organic planting, so it comes from the same biome or territory that I'm from. All types of containers, it's all you need to grow, supposedly. On the back here, you can see that it contains compost, potting mix, planting mix, gardening mix, top dressing, and clay buster. Clay buster is important, especially in this climate out here. And then we've got the Gardener Special. So this is an all-purpose plant food fertilizer that has fast and slow release nitrogen. It's got an 11-15-11 combination here of the NKP. So here's what I'm putting in. I'm just learning about this, so as I go, hopefully this will be a great all-purpose one. I'm considering getting some fish, liquid fish fertilizer for the tomatoes. So as we walk over here, some of these could use some liquid fertilizer to get healthier quick. The sun's really been getting to them, but as you can see, this is where we're headed. So today here we've got a composter that we just set up, and it's got 2 different sides. One for the one that's currently composting, and then another one for the compost that's completed. So you can kind of switch them out in cycles. And so it's important to have a 3-to-1 ratio of carbon and nitrogen in the compost. And so that way when you're composting, you know, you're gonna add things like, you know, your food scraps, right? You're not gonna put any meat in here, but you might put, you know, eggshells and fruit, vegetables, leftovers, things like that can go in, and mix it with things like this pine sawdust. Here's your carbon. So the vegetables and the plants are the nitrogen. Here's your carbon. You can also do it with, you know, mulch. You can do it with different things. You know, the chicken feces can go in there and use it as a fertilizer. And over time, as this heats up on the inside, the mixture of that carbon and nitrogen together will create the compost, and then you can use that to feed the plants in the garden. And so we've got a couple down branches here that we're going to be taking care of. And for example, you can take all the leaves off that, crush them up, and add them to the compost. All right, so in this part, what we're doing here is cutting up the Irish Spring soap bars. This is the original scent Irish Spring. The reason for this is to get that scent around the garden to keep the critters out. Like I said in the previous video, some of my tomatoes went missing, so I'm assuming that we've got some rabbits or squirrels that might be interested in what we're gardening. We did some research, and thank you to D. White for suggesting this method. He found it on YouTube, and I found several comments saying that it worked for people. Basically, you're going to cut up chunks of the Irish Spring soap bar, put it into some socks or pantyhose, some type of cloth material, and hang it around the garden, and that helps deter the critters from eating or coming into the garden. So we're going to give that a shot, just giving you a look at the size chunks we're using, and next you'll see how I set them up in the garden. So this is the first attempt, and we've got several of them hung up here. I might have used too much fabric on a few of these. So just from some recycled clothing, we're able to get several of these Irish Spring hangers up, and basically they're just there to deter the animals. Now imagine that the scent is not going to last forever. The video that we watched said, every 4 weeks or so replace the soap, but you can probably end up reusing these cloths as long as they don't get too bad. I might not pick the striped one again, but this is the first go, and hopefully it deters them from taking the rest of my tomatoes and my newly formed jalapeno. This guy seemingly came overnight. He's got a little twin over there. So we're starting to get some fruit of the labor. Pretty exciting, guys. All right, guys, so we're at a neighbor's house and taking care of their garden while they're gone. These planters are amazing. You can have so many different plants in them, and you just water it straight down from the top. That water soaks all the way in, all the way to the bottom. So very inspiring and educational. Quite a learning experience here to find out what some educated urban farmers are up to. Very nice. All kinds of different food and plants happening here. So just want to give you a preview of what I look to do in the future, and this is super inspiring.